This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, everybody, thank you for trying to get into this session earlier. What ended up happening was that we had so many people trying to take part that the system crashed on us. So we are trying this again, and I appreciate your patience. Today's session is judges, attorneys, and bankers, where to find them and how to prospect in the niche. My name is Rich Cruz. This is an area of focus that I have had now for 21, almost 22 years. And I am going to just show you guys in today's session what I did to build my business. A little bit more about me, and I'm not going to take this call right now. I'm a realtor and auctioneer. I've been licensed in multiple states. 1989 for real estate, auctions since 1997. I'm a state court receiver, Ohio private selling officer, approved in the United States Bankruptcy Court in multiple districts. I'm a former chairman of the Ohio Auctioneers Commission, among other things. Our agenda for today are some industry terms, basics and industry terms, client identification, and prospecting to that client niche. Terms and definitions. When you're going to be working with lawyers and bankers and insolvency and distressed assets, you're going to really need to know two main things: a little bit about bankruptcy and a little bit about state court receivership, a little bit about foreclosure. Not really going to get into foreclosure terms today because they're pretty basic, and you'll get into them when you're working in receivership and bankruptcy as well. But as you probably know, bankruptcy is a legal proceeding involving a person or a business that can't pay their debts. Chapter 7 is a liquidation that is for either businesses or individuals. Chapter 11 is a reorganization for corporations or a partnership. And a Chapter 13 is for an individual or couple with regular income. The word creditor will be used a lot. So the people in these cases, they're referred to as the creditor or the debtor. Creditor is the person who owes the money. I'm sorry, creditor is the person who is owed the money, and the debtor is the person who owes the money. Another term you'll see that's not on this list is counsel. Counsel essentially means the attorneys for the parties. 341 meeting, that's the meeting of the creditors that is undertaken to determine what exactly the debts might be. The debtor will be examined usually by the potential panel trustee, or what you call the bankruptcy trustee. And then 363 sale is the section of the bankruptcy code under which the liquidation of assets would take place. So if you're conducting an auction, you'd be conducting what would be called a 363 auction or a 363 sale, for example. Basic state receivership, a party files. It's usually the creditor that files against the debtor, which is different than in a bankruptcy case. Once they file their complaint, they would then file for a motion of appointment of receiver. So the receiver then becomes involved in the case upon motion, as opposed to automatically like a bankruptcy trustee would. There would be a hearing in front of the state court judge or a county judge. And then there's no guarantee that the receiver will be appointed. If the receiver is appointed, they're appointed under a court order appointing receiver. And then at that point, that receiver may need to be engaging professionals such as appraisers, real estate agents, or auctioneers. They may also be looking for people just like a bankruptcy trustee would, just to go do an asset verification. And these are all things that you can be engaged to do and get paid to do. One of the things to note about the receivership laws and the bankruptcy laws is typically bankruptcy laws are the same all over the country, and they are modified usually by what would be called a local rule. And the receivership laws vary by state, and sometimes the local rules between different counties and even the same state are significant. So if you're working in these types of transactions, just know that there may be local rules that you as the professional may need to adhere to. Code sections for receivership. I'm not going to go through them because everybody is from different parts of the country, but basically if you want to Google receivership laws in your state, you will end up with the section of code for that particular state. And again, they are all going to be different. Contracts and protocol. There are some special things to know about acting within the court system is that you're going to need to have your retention not just signed by the trustee or the receiver. You're going to need to have that engagement ratified by the court. So you're going to put forward a listing agreement. There'd be an application to employ. You may have to do an affidavit of disinterest. There may be a motion to sell the asset or a motion to confirm the sale on the back end. And then there may also be a motion for payment of fees, which would need to get confirmed before you can receive your payment. In some instances, you may be asked, even in a chattel offering, where you would normally keep the money in your trust account until disbursement, to disperse those funds to the trustee or to the receiver, who will then escrow all of the money and then pay you your fees and expenses after the court ratifies the payment. So it's just a little bit different. You may need to have bonds, a bankruptcy bond in bankruptcy court, or specific different types of insurance in a receivership case. Your insurance company may want you to have specific riders if you're going to be acting in these different types of cases. So you're going to want to talk to your insurance company to make sure that you have the proper coverage, because this is litigation. You are going to be watched by a variety of parties in a court proceeding. So you always want to make sure that you have the correct coverage. As we touched upon earlier, court approvals, you need to be retained. Your sale needs to be approved, and you may need an approval of your final payment. Sale protocol is something that you are going to have to be able to prove. So your marketing efforts, whether this is a general brokerage listing or an auction sale, is going to have to be commercially reasonable. And that is something that you might want to discuss with the person engaging you. If this is a trustee or a receiver, is, what does the local court deem to be commercially reasonable? Some courts say that, say, for example, in a foreclosure case, it is just the legal ad. But to offer the same property in a receiver sale outside of a sheriff or a PSO sale, commercially reasonable might mean email blasts, signage, web postings, open houses, drone photos, and the definition changes based upon the scenario, or can change. So you're going to want to know what those are in your particular area. And then you're going to want to document your actions, because you may actually have to sit in a hearing on was your marketing effort commercially reasonable or not. And you're going to want to have copies of your advertising. You're going to want to have click-through counts. You're going to want to know how many people you talk to. You're going to want to have notes on those conversations, etc. Sometimes they're asked for, a lot of times they're not, but it is highly likely that you could at some point be asked for that data, and it is best to have it as opposed to not, because the transaction going through will be based upon, in part, this performance, and so will getting paid. So obviously, You want to get paid, so document your actions. If you want to find out more information on just general insolvency, bankruptcy, receiver, sales, etc., you can go to these 4 places. Google, obviously, being the catch-all. Bankruptcydata.com has a lot of information, and you can, I think, sign up for a subscription there to be notified of new cases in your area. Turnaround.org is the Turnaround Management Association. There's a lot of information there. And then ABI World is the American Bankruptcy Institute website. And there's a bunch of information there, as well as listings of professionals. So kind of getting into the prospecting, which I know everybody wants to hear about. We're going to talk mostly about commercial here. And we're going to talk about commercial real estate and commercial business liquidations. Residential is a completely different animal, and probate is a completely different animal. But if you're interested in those things, bear with us for this presentation, because we are going to get into identifying and locating the law firms, and that's a big way for you guys to get into even a bank REO for residential REO and residential pre-foreclosure stuff. So there's going to be something in here for you guys. But finding your commercial bankers, you're going to go to your state bankers associations. In Ohio, it's the CBOA, and I'm mentioning Ohio since that's where I am, and this is where I get my data from, or the Ohio Bankers League, which is the OBL. You're also going to ask around. So you're going to ask around in your particular bank, or your friend's bank, or other banks that you run into, and you're going to want to find out who are the REO officers. And REO is real estate owned, or it stands for OREO, is other real estate owned. Some banks consider their branches REO or real estate owned. Some of them consider their branches as facilities. So that's just another term to know. But REO is post foreclosure generally. And workout department or special asset group is pre-foreclosure. And you can get work from the law firms and from the pre-foreclosure departments directly at the banks, doing a number of things. Again, broker price opinions or appraisals. We just did an appraisal last week. Bank called us and wanted us to evaluate a fleet of trucks in advance of them possibly calling the note. So it might be a liquidation project for us in the future. It might not be, but we were able to bill them a few $1,000s for our time and just evaluating the fleet. So you're going to want to try to get in touch with the banks, learn who their workout or their SAG officers are, because there's business there, and it does lead to business down the road. They can also help you identify areas where possibly you could go and be engaged by the debtor entity as part of an agreement with the bank. So for example, ABC Bank won't foreclose on Smith Trucking if Smith Trucking agrees to hire this particular real estate broker or this particular auctioneer to help wind down and liquidate the business. So that would keep it out of court, but also be kind of directed by the financial institution. And those sorts of transactions happen every day all over the country. Finding your attorneys is, this is really the way that I get most of my business, and a way that a lot of folks know and get a lot of their business. For the bankruptcy trustees, you can call the various courts to get a list. I don't know if they're listed on the internet anywhere. Some might be, but back in the day, you used to have to send a self-addressed stamped envelope, and then they would give it to you in the mail. Nowadays, you call, and they'll more than likely just email you a list of the trustees. Martindale Hubbell at martindale.com is a great place to find attorneys. Lawyers.com and findlaw.com are just a couple other ones. You can look in your state and local bar association directories. if you have access to those. Some are online, some are not. There's also the statewide judges directory. Some states have them, some states don't. I know Ohio does. It's sitting here right on my desk. I refer to it all the time. And when you're going and doing these searches, you're going to want to search for particular terms because the attorneys are identified by their practice area. So you're going to be looking for debtor or creditor's rights. That's supposed to say rights, not rickets. So creditor's rights, banking, bankruptcy, insolvency, probate if you're looking for probate, which we're really not going to get into right now. You might also be looking for real estate attorneys. Possibly you're not wanting to completely do all distressed assets, but finding the real estate attorneys is beneficial because real estate attorneys represent real estate owners, and real estate owners from time to time buy and sell. So if you don't want to do insolvency, or you want to do a little insolvency, a little something else, you can add real estate attorneys to this list. I like the law firms for this very particular reason. The law firms have a ripple effect, much more so than getting in with a banker. And don't get me wrong, once you get in with one banker, it's easier to get in with other bankers in the same bank. But law firms do it a lot broader and a lot faster, in my opinion. So if you think about getting into one creditor's rights law firm in your city or your county, that one law firm represents more than likely multiple financial institutions. In this slide, we're saying, hey, it has 5 banks, right? So each bank has a number of workout officers. Depending on the size of the bank, they could have 1, or if you're talking about Fifth Third, Bank of America, Citi, Key, things like that. I mean, there could literally be 100 workout officers or more spread out across the country, spread out by different asset type. Real estate under $1 million, real estate over $1 million, real estate portfolio, equipment under $500,000, total businesses under $1 million, vehicle fleets or trucking. So there are specialties. So in this scenario, you have 5 banks. Each one has 5 workout officers. Each workout officer has multiple files. So in theory, you get in with one law firm, you have 5 banks, 5 workout officers, each, that's 25 individuals. And then each workout officer has multiple files they're engaged on. So you're spreading yourself out a lot quicker, a lot faster, if you can simply get in and be successful with one law firm, as opposed to going bank to bank to bank to bank to bank. You can do it that way. In my experience, law firms are much faster. Finding the judges. When I started out, I was told don't prospect the judges or don't give the judges your contact information. And boy, was that bad advice. It was great for the guy that was giving it to me. It was not so good for me. And the reason was that he became the buffer to all the projects. So I only got what he decided to pass through. So I finally started putting the judges and the staff attorneys and the magistrates on my prospecting list, my mailing list. And then that way I was going directly to the court. They were finding out who I was. And what started to happen is I would get calls directly from the judges, the magistrates, and the staff attorneys asking me to become involved in a case. And it would totally bypass the disputing parties and their attorneys. And when I can tell you, when the judge calls and stands you in the courtroom in front of everybody and says, you guys figure this out, or Mr. Cruz is going to get involved and figure it out for you, there's usually not a lot of pushback, and either the case gets settled or you end up getting appointed. So you're going to want to find your judges and your magistrates, Google again, your state judges directory, that you might have to get that through a friend at a law firm. I actually got mine through one of the staff attorneys that I'm really close with in a judge's office. And then, put all these folks on your mailing list. You're going to want to identify the other staff as well. I mentioned the staff attorney, the bailiff, also, and there's going to be a secretary as well. And when you get in touch with them, you're going to ask what you need to do to be on the approved list, if there's an approved list, or if you could just come in and talk with one of them, or be on a phone call, or send your information on an email. But you want to get these people into the mix with you, just like your bankers and your lawyers, and keep them aware of what you're doing. So they're going to be in your drip file. Something else that some people will do, some people won't, is I tell people to get involved politically, and that's one of the ways to work yourself into the courthouses. You're gonna get involved in a judicial reelection campaign. You're gonna get involved with your particular political party. You're going to run into the judges, staff attorneys, bailiffs, secretaries, lawyers, all of these folks at these different fundraisers or political meetings. And it's just another way to get known, and I use that very successfully for myself. You can also find people through LinkedIn. You're going to be searching your keywords: REO, special assets, probate, divorce, insolvency, debtor, creditor, etc., just like you were doing when you were trying to find your attorneys. And you're going to add in, the area that you're searching in to try to get those. Recommend you get an enhanced account through LinkedIn. I think it's like $49 a month, and then you can send folks emails to connect, and then pull that data out and put them into your contact management system, or your email account, or onto your snail mail mailing list. Prospecting in this niche, there are a few things that are pretty important to know. It doesn't happen overnight. I've been doing this for almost 22 years now. There are people that were on my prospect list for years and years and years before they ever called me. There are people on my prospecting list that have never called me, but they know who I am and they know what my business does. And I can go in and be in a meeting with them. They didn't call me, but since they know who I am, it's a whole lot easier to get them on board with my retention, because I'm keeping them up to date on my mailing list and on my email list. So you're going to want to get this into a drip, and it's going to take time. And normally how you would say, hey, if I don't have anybody contacting me, say within 12 months or 18 months, I'm going to take them off my mailing list. Completely disagree with you in this niche. You need to always have them on your mailing list until they get out of the business. Like anything, it's a relationship business. People like doing business with people they like, and you really need to be genuine. These folks, they become your friends, because if you're doing this the right way, you're going to end up doing repeat business with these people. You're going to see them time and time again in transaction after transaction over the years. So you want to let them know who you are. What are your likes, dislikes? Get to know them as a person. They're people just like you and I are. So you're just almost trying to find people in this niche that you have something in common with, because they'll gravitate towards you, you'll gravitate towards them, and it'll become a better working relationship. Something else that you really need to understand about working in any business, but specifically this one, don't get caught lying. If you don't know, just admit it. The lawyers and the bankers and the judges, they don't know everything. They don't expect you to know everything, but they do expect you to tell them when you don't know. as opposed to faking the funk and getting everybody into some hot water. When you're dealing with, I don't know everything, one of the ways that I found excellent to not know but be able to get the answer is you always sell the we. And the we means you, me, and everybody else in your sphere of influence. So sell the we, don't do it alone. I learned this a long, long time ago. It just kind of came top of mind a few months back, and I can't tell you how many times I have discussed with people sell the we, and it basically is saying, hey, you have a group of mentors, you have a group of team members, whether they're full time with you or not. There are people with different backgrounds, different interests, different specialties that you can call on to get an answer when you need it. And you want to build that team and build your resources. Like for me, some of the people that I rely on all the time, I've got them on my website with their agreement. I think I'm on their website as well. In your proposals and your letters, you're going to use we, us, our, as opposed to I, because it's not just you all the time. And when you're talking to folks, if they're saying, hey, do you know X, Y, and Z, for example, do I know about coins? I've dealt with coins a little bit, but I work with a bunch of guys all over the country that have a lot more experience in coins than I do. Give me a day and I will get in touch with one of those guys who has a better background and that I partner with on transactions that I can call as a resource, and I'll get back to you. And that is usually a very acceptable answer. So remember to sell yourself, but also sell the we and sell your resources. And it's better than telling them and making a mistake. So this is something that I just put in. Somebody was asking me about, well, how do you reach out to these people? And they couldn't figure it out. It's not rocket science. Like I said earlier, they're just people, just because they're judges or attorneys or bankers, they're still people. It's real simple. A basic email, an intro email, or even if this is a phone call. Hey, I understand we haven't met before, but you may, I know that you have the need for brokers, appraisers, auctioneers every now and then. I was wondering if you'd spend 15 minutes on the phone with me in the near future. That's an email. Here, my CV or my bio or my resume is attached for your review, and here's a link to my website. And now, if you've been referred to them by another professional, you say that at the beginning of the call. Dear Mr. Lawyer or Banker or Ms. Lawyer and Banker, I got your name from, Tim down at the Goodyear. You and I haven't met, but I understand you need this and that every now and again. And it's pretty simple. It's not rocket science. I can track back to the start of my career here in Columbus, Ohio. We came from the East Coast. And when I went out on my own, I was doing cold calls. And this is the exact intro that I used with a young attorney. And the answer was, okay, I'll give you 10 minutes if you'll give me 10 minutes. And that was the deal. And it was a cold call. And it went back to a guy named Otto Beatty III. I've been friends with Otto now for 15 years. And he wanted to tell me about his side business, which was moving and storage. And I wanted to tell him about my business. It was a win-win. But Otto started giving me projects. I worked my way into meeting more of his banker clients and on and on and on and on and on. But it started with this very simple introduction that still works today. Right, more prospecting and retention. So you're going to start with reviewing the websites that I went over with you earlier to generate your prospect contact info. You're going to build a database. I'm kind of an old dog. I don't learn new tricks very easily, so I still use an Excel spreadsheet and Microsoft Outlook. There are much better programs, but this is how I build and keep my contacts, and then you're gonna, call and ask for a meeting, or you're gonna send them an email, just like you did. We were talking about in the last slide, and it's the easiest, most cost-effective way to get in the door, because it's just a phone call, and you're paying a phone bill every month anyway. Or if you are doing this via email, you're paying your email account. You have a free Gmail account. That's some cost, so just use it. This is more for the lawyers, but if you're asking for meetings, well, actually, maybe the lawyers and the judges, honestly, is see if you can get a meeting earlier in the morning or later in the afternoon, because you're not a billable client. They may be very interested in what you have to say, but they can't bill their time to anybody. So they're going to want to maybe have coffee at 7:30 or 8 a.m. or something, after 4. And what I've always done is, if I'm going in and it's a coffee meeting, I'm bringing the coffee. I go get a jug from Starbucks, and I think it cost me $14, and I bring it in, and it's not just for me and the guy that I'm meeting with. It's for me, the guy that I'm meeting with, and his support staff. So I always say, schmooze the secretary or the assistant, or get to know the secretary or the assistant, because they're just as important as helping you get the business from these professionals as it is connecting directly to the professional. Many times, the secretary or the assistant is the one that is going to be handing out the business. I can hear the guys calling out to the assistant to say, hey, who was the name of that real estate broker that was in here 2 months ago? The guy that brought us the coffee, we need to talk to him. He doesn't remember your name, or the principal doesn't remember your name, but the assistant very well might, or the secretary might, probably because you're one of the few people that took the time to bring them into the conversation, or give them some of the coffee, or remember their name when you called. So the support staff is incredibly important to prospecting and building business in this niche. So a little bit more prospecting. Direct mail. I know a lot of people say direct mail is dead. I disagree. We do postcards. We do one postcard every month. It's the same postcard every single month. Repeat, repeat, repeat. So it's brand building. It's getting the folks to recognize our brand and what it's associated with. And we send it once a month, like clockwork. And then for your auctioneers, if you have a direct mail piece going out that you mail out sale bills, things like that, drop these people into your that direct mail list, and make sure that they get a copy of all of your auction sale bills. For your real estate agents, if you do just listings or just solds, for example, possibly drop these folks onto that snail mail list. You want to be top of mind, and you want these people that you're trying to get to hire you to know that you're doing business and other people are hiring you and you're good at your job. Some cost-effective places to get your postcards. Magnum Press is a place that I use. They're not the cheapest, but I found that they are incredibly diligent. Pure Postcards, or one of those other Vistaprint or something like that, are other places that you can get these items at a much lower cost, and then you can have them send them out for you, or you can send them out yourself. Emails. I'm doing a basic email, a reminder, this is me email, minimum of once a month. So I do it opposite the direct mail dates. So if I'm doing one email blast a month and one direct mail a month, so week 1 of the month, the postcard goes out. Week 3 of the month, the email blast goes out, and you just set that up. And I set it up in December for the whole next year, and it just runs. You're going to also do your sale bill emails, or if you do press releases for whatever reason, you're going to want those to go out via email as well. Constant Contact is the place that I've used to get to warehouse my emails and to be my database for sending for probably 10 years now. You can get a basic trial account, I think, with like 50 people for free for 30 days. After that, you can get in for as low as $20. That's up to 500 email addresses. I think I'm over 30, 40,000. I think I'm up at like the 350 plus mark for mine. But it took time to build that, and your main lawyer, banker, judges mailing list may be 500 or less. So you could get into this pretty cheap as far as your emails go. PR, I'm a big fan of press releases. They're a great way to get free advertising. If you are an auctioneer and you're a member of the National Auctioneers Association, you can get the association's list of reporters for free. It's downloadable off the website. If you're not in the NAA, you're gonna have to do a little bit of Googling, but I'm sure you guys already know how to do that. So just Google, reporters or free press, and you can get access to lists that way. And then all you do is take your emails, merge them into your eBlast program, such as Constant Contact, and you can send out your eBlasts and your PR that way to the reporters. PR Web is another place to load up your content to have sent out. I think the lowest price PR send on PR Web, I think, is $99, and it goes up to $350 or so. Or you can hire yourself a consultant that'll write the report or write the press release for you, send it out, manage inquiries, etc. But now you're starting to get up to 1,000 or more per press release. And PR Underground is something that I found a couple of months ago. I haven't used it, but it does seem like it's a lot less expensive than PR Web. Some folks like to blog and tweet and use Facebook. I'm not a blogger. I'm not really a tweeter. I do use Facebook. A lot of my lawyer banker clients are also Facebook friends. And they like my business page, and we're connected on the individual side as well. For just disseminating information, I use a system called Buffer. You can get it for free, and you can link up with your Facebook, your LinkedIn, your Twitter, Instagram. You can put all of them in there, but to put 3 profiles in, it's free. I think if you go over 3, it's like $10 a month. So that's just another way to kind of get yourself out there just through the social media. Doing your research, all of the going through websites to identify where these folks are and to cultivate their contact information can be very expensive and time consuming. I have it redone every year. I just, write a quick description of what I want and put it up on Elance or Upwork. Somebody grabs it, and they're usually overseas and much less expensive labor, and they go through it, and it takes a couple of days, and I get an updated list, and maybe it costs me $100, $150. Not very expensive at all to go through those. And if you're doing buyer outreach, this is not necessarily bankers and lawyers and whatnot, but buyer outreach. I just have this in here: Arc Agent, Power Dialer, to reach out to your buyer bases. Is a nice service, but we're not really talking about buyers, so I'm going to move on. More prospecting. So attending your bar association meetings. The different bar associations have different committees. So at least here in Central Ohio, the Columbus Bar has a real estate committee and an insolvency and bankruptcy committee. I go to those every once in a while. I used to do it more often when I had more time, but that was a great place to see and be seen, to run into the folks that sometimes you're just interacting with via email or phone. The banker league, each state I think has a bankers league. So that's where you're going to see your bank executives. And then as you become more and more of an expert in this niche, you offer to speak at these different venues about what's going on in the real estate market, what's going on with auction liquidations, how different factors are impacting sales price, all the different things that are of interest to a non lawyer banker client are of interest to them too. So if you've got a presentation that you give at the Elks Lodge twice a year, this is a great place or a couple of places to offer to give that same presentation. You can also offer free valuations. Be very careful. Once somebody knows that they're going to get you for free, they will try to get you for free. And I've run into a couple of folks that they try to take advantage of that. I just finally never got any business from them. It was always the free valuation. And frankly, I just told them to stop calling me. Talked about getting involved politically, working with re-election campaigns, your county party, whichever that is. Be a donor if you can. The fastest way to get in with a political party is give them money and throw parties. And I do this. I didn't do a lot of it last year because we were just so busy. But typically we do large parties, two a year, a Bloody Mary bash on New Year's Day, and a barbecue in the fall. And I'll invite probably 1,500 people, give or take, to each one of these events. And usually we have a good 200 to 400 that'll show up. And the bankers show up. Sort of my non banker clients. Some of my friends show up. People from my church show up. But you do get the bankers, and you get the judges showing up, and you get the guys who are up in the political party are showing up. And when you get the guys that are up in the political party showing up and the judges, tends to be the lawyers too, because they want access to the judges over a cocktail, and they might want to be able to get known by the political party so they can work their way up to being a judge. And it all just kind of works off itself. So very big on throwing parties as a prospecting and a retention tool in my niche. And that's about it. If you need help or have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call. And there are the numbers, 614-774-4118. That's my cell. Email is faster than calling, and texting is faster than calling. I spend an enormous amount of time on the phone. So a lot of times if you call and it's not scheduled, you'll miss me. But I can usually answer an email or answer a text, even if I'm sitting on a conference call. So hopefully I will hear from you if you need some help. If not, I wish you the best of luck, and thank you for participating in today's event. Take care, everybody.